She didn't collapse because she was weak. She collapsed because someone who smiled at her face had been poisoning her tea, one quiet cup at a time. And the most dangerous man in Atlanta had no idea until the night his whole world stopped breathing. The 911 call came in at 2:53 a.m. A woman, unresponsive, 8 months pregnant, found on the floor of the upper hallway of the SEO estate in Buckhead, Atlanta. Fingers still stretched toward the wall like she'd been trying to reach something. Or someone. The housekeeper who found her said she was whispering. Not screaming, not crying. Just whispering, low and steady, like she was talking to the baby. Stay with me. Stay with me. Luo Yang got the call in a warehouse on the south side of the city, a building that didn't appear on any municipal record in a meeting that had taken 9 weeks to arrange. His phone was face down on the table. His head of security, Baek Jin-ho, never called during operations. Never. He answered before the second ring. The pause on the other end lasted 3 seconds. It's Mrs. Co., Piedmont, Atlanta. You need to come now, boss. The chair behind him hit the floor. 4 men stepped aside without being told. The deal, 9 weeks, 2 continents, 12 figures, was over. Whoever was still in that room could burn with it. 6 months earlier, the SEO family dining room had felt like a courtroom. Luo Yang sat at the head of the long obsidian table. His mother, Madame Seo Yiran, sat at the other end. Between them, 12 feet of silence and the ghost of a conversation she'd been building toward for weeks. You married her. Not a question. A verdict. I married my wife. He reached for his water. Her name is Tegan. His mother's expression didn't shift. It never did. Dark eyes, architectural composure, the quiet authority of a woman who had held a criminal empire together with her bare hands for 30 years while pretending to pour tea. She is not one of us. No. He set the glass down. She's better. If you've ever loved someone your family didn't approve of, drop a heart in the comments. This story is about to show you what real loyalty looks like. Like this video, subscribe, and let's get into it. Her name was Choi Serene, and she had known Luo Yang for 7 years. She was the daughter of his father's oldest ally. Elegant, deliberate, the kind of beautiful that required maintenance and strategy. She had expected to be chosen. She had planned for it. And then Tegan had walked into his restaurant on Peachtree Street 14 months ago, unimpressed by his name, unbothered by his silences, and asked for the corner station by the window without a please or a sir. And that had been the end of everything Saren had built in her mind. She came to the house on a Tuesday afternoon. Luo Yang was away. Madame Seo Yiran was hosting her social circle on the west patio. Laughter drifting through the garden like nothing was wrong. Saren entered through the side door. She knew the code. Madame Yiran had made sure of that. She asked the housekeeper, Mrs. O, for water. Mrs. O brought it to the east sitting room. And when Mrs. O returned to the kitchen, Saren was standing at the counter. Right beside Tegan's evening tray, the chamomile tea blend, the prenatal vitamins, the small things Tegan took to bed every night without fail, because she was 8 months pregnant and careful and trusting. Saren opened her bag. She didn't rush. She didn't look over her shoulder. She simply did what she had come to do, and walked out 20 minutes later, past the magnolias, into the afternoon sun, like a woman leaving a tea party. That night, Tegan told Luo Yang she hadn't slept well. He pressed his palm to her stomach. Beneath his hand, the baby moved. She always does, Tegan said softly. He kissed her forehead and believed everything was fine. He was wrong. The second night, Tegan woke at 3 a.m. with her hands trembling. She lay still, studying the ceiling, counting breaths the way she used to before Luo Yang taught her that stillness didn't have to be frightening. Her back ached. Her chest felt strange, tight, like something was pressing from the inside. She told herself it was the baby. She was 32 weeks. Everything was heavy, everything pressed. She didn't wake him. By the third morning, she was visibly pale. Mrs. O noticed at breakfast. She said nothing. She was paid to be invisible. But she watched Tegan move through the kitchen with careful, deliberate steps, like the floor might shift beneath her. She watched her set down her orange juice halfway through because her hand had gone weak. Mrs. O thought, the pregnancy is wearing on her. Madame Seo-Yuran said the same thing that afternoon when the household staff mentioned it. These pregnancies are difficult. She'll rest. She said it with the tone of a woman closing a door. Luo Yang called from the road that evening. How are you feeling? Tired, Tegan said. Just tired. He paused. That familiar micro-silence she'd come to read like weather. I'll be home by 9, she almost told him. There was something lodged in her throat that she couldn't name. A wrongness, quiet and persistent. Like a note played slightly off-key, but she couldn't locate it. She couldn't point to it. So she said, drive safe, Luo. She went upstairs. She made her tea. She didn't know it was the last cup. The third night, Tegan didn't make it back to bed. Mrs. O found her at 2:53 a.m. Crumpled in the east hallway, one hand pressed flat against the wall, her breathing shallow and labored, her lips moving. Her body temperature was wrong. Her pulse was wrong. The baby's kicks had stopped 2 hours earlier, and Tegan, even then, even barely conscious, had been too afraid to say it out loud, because saying it would make it real. Mrs. O called the ambulance first. Then she called Beck Jinho. Piedmont Atlanta's trauma team moved fast. Tegan was 32 weeks. The baby's heartbeat was present but irregular. The attending physician ordered a full toxicology panel within the first hour. Not standard procedure, but something about the presentation didn't fit a routine pregnancy complication. The numbers were wrong in ways that didn't add up to anything natural. They stabilized Tegan by 4:30 a.m. The baby was still fighting. Luo Yang arrived at 3:17 a.m. He parked in the restricted zone. He didn't speak to anyone. He walked directly to the ICU and pushed open the door. Tegan was connected to 4 monitors. Her natural locks were loose against the pillow. Her dark skin was ashen, but her eyes tracked him the moment he entered. Steady, watchful, still entirely her. He pulled a chair to her bedside and sat without a word. He took her hand. She turned her palm up, their language, the thing they'd built between them over 14 months, and pressed it against his. He didn't ask her what happened. Not yet. He just held on. 3 days after Tegan was stabilized, the toxicology results came back. Methocarbamol, a muscle relaxant, administered gradually, small doses, repeated exposure, something consumed daily. The attending physician flagged it immediately and filed a report. Luo Yang read the results alone, standing in the hallway outside her room, and felt the temperature in his body drop. He called Mrs. O that afternoon. She came to the estate's third-floor office, sat across from him with her hands folded, and told him everything with the precision of someone who had been carrying a weight and was finally setting it down. Miss Choi came to the house 6 days ago, Tuesday afternoon. You were not home, Luo Yang's jaw set. She asked for water. I brought it to the sitting room. When I came back to the kitchen, Mrs. O paused. Her composure fractured, just slightly, at the corners of her mouth. She was standing at Mrs. Tegan's tray. The tea, the vitamins. I didn't think anything of it. I had no reason to. The room went very still. Luo Yang stood. He walked to the window. Outside, the magnolias were white and indifferent. He stood there for 30 seconds with his hands clasped behind his back. Then, thank you, Mrs. O, you may go. After she left, he picked up his phone. He scrolled to Jinho's name. I need everything on Choi Saren. Her movements, her access to this house, every conversation she's had with any member of my family in the last 6 months. A pause. And Jinho. Find out what my mother knew. The silence on the line lasted exactly 2 seconds. Understood, boss. He drove to Piedmont in 11 minutes. Tegan was awake. She'd been drifting in and out for 2 days. The doctors used the word stabilized, which Luo Yang had learned meant she isn't getting worse rather than she is well. The baby's heartbeat played on the monitor to the left. 147 beats per minute. Fast and insistent and alive. She turned her head when he entered. Her locks were pressed flat on one side. Her eyes were clear. "You found something," she said, not a question. He sat beside the bed and took her hand. Her fingers were cold. He looked at her, at the woman he had chosen over his family's expectations, over decades of tradition, over every calculated strategy his upbringing had armed him with, and felt something move through him that wasn't anger. Anger was familiar. This was different. This was the coal that came when something sacred had been touched. "Saren was in the house," he said. "She tampered with your tea." Tegan didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She closed her eyes for 3 seconds. When she opened them, they were steady. "Your mother," she said quietly. Did she know? He said nothing, which was its own answer. Tegan turned to the window. Atlanta hummed outside, indifferent, continuous, unbothered. Then she looked back at him. Her eyes were not soft. They were clear and absolute. The eyes of a woman who had already crossed through the grief and come out the other side. "Handle it, Luo, all of it. Not just Saren." He held her gaze. Yes, Tegan just found out the truth, and she didn't break. She chose to fight. Would you have stayed? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you're still watching, you already know this story is different. Jinho sent the file at 11:47 p.m., a message thread. Saren's phone. The contact was saved as Eomonim, the Korean word for mother, his mother. The messages went back 4 months. Luo Yong read everyone. Standing in the hospital parking garage, engine off, the city pressing in from every direction. Saren raising doubts about Tegan's character. His mother acknowledging them, not arguing, not shutting it down. Saren requesting access to the house on 3 separate occasions. His mother facilitating every single one. There was no message that said, "Do it." There didn't need to be. He drove to the estate. Madame Seo Yiran was in her sitting room. Celadon ceramics, dark wood, a single orchid on, the side table. She had been waiting. She straightened when he entered. Luo Yong remained standing. "You knew Saren was coming into this house," he said. "You gave her access. You knew Tegan collapsed. And you said nothing. I suspected nothing. Yama." His voice was a blade, flat and clean. "Don't." She went silent. "I have the messages. I have Mrs. O's testimony. I have the toxicology report and a federal investigation already in motion." He took 1 step forward. "What I don't have is a reason why the woman who raised me to honor loyalty and protect family stood by while someone poisoned the mother of her grandchild." The silence in the room was absolute. His mother's chin lifted. "I believed Tegan would leave. I believed Saren would restore what should have been. You didn't want to know. So you chose not to." He turned toward the door. "By morning, David Kwan, the organization's attorney, will restructure every board and every account. You will have no administrative authority over anything. You will remain in this house. But you will have no access to Tegan or to my daughter." He paused at the door. "Not until she decides otherwise." He left without turning around. Saren was in federal custody by Thursday morning. David Kwan had moved quietly, the way all the best legal work moved, invisibly and with the permanence of stone. The toxicology report, Mrs. O's testimony, the access logs from the estate's security system, the full message thread between Saren and his mother. All of it filed through a channel that couldn't be traced back to Luo Yong. It was done. But Jinho called that afternoon with one more thing. A photograph. Timestamped 30 minutes earlier. Saren's attorney leaving the federal building, and walking beside him, a man Luo Yong recognized immediately. His uncle. Park Byun-ho, his father's younger brother and the one board member David had warned would resist the restructuring. Luo Yong called a full organizational meeting. He stood at the head of the table, white shirt, 4 buttons open, the black tiger tattoo just visible above his collar, and looked at every face before he spoke. 6 weeks ago, my wife was poisoned in our home. She was 32 weeks pregnant. The person responsible had access to this house because she was let in by people connected to members of this organization. He let it land. Saren is in federal custody. That chapter is closed. He turned his gaze to his uncle. Park Byun-ho. You are removed from this board, effective today. You knew what was being planned. You said nothing. In my father's code and in mine, that makes you responsible. His uncle's jaw tightened. You're destroying what your father built. Luo Yang looked at him without flinching. My father built this for his family. Tegan and my daughter are my family. Anyone who protects them is part of what he built. He left the sentence unfinished. He didn't need to finish it. Tegan was discharged on a Sunday. Luo Yang didn't take her back to the Buckhead estate. He took her to the house on Westview Drive, a place he had purchased 3 weeks earlier and handed to a designer with one instruction. She loves natural light. She needs to feel safe. Make it feel like her. The designer had understood. Wide windows, warm wood floors the color of honey. A nursery painted in soft sage green that Tegan walked into and stood in for a full minute without speaking. She touched the edge of the window seat, ran her fingers along the crib, white wood, sturdy, simple. On the shelf above it, 2 things. A small carved Haiti, the Korean guardian lion, and a hand-painted sunflower, Tegan's mother's favorite flower. Both of them. Both worlds. Luo, she said. He stood in the doorway. She turned. Her locks were loose around her face, her hand resting on her stomach, her eyes holding that particular quality they always did. The one that had undone him from the first moment. Not warmth exactly, recognition. The look of someone who saw through everything and chose to stay anyway. This is ours, she said. Only ours. He crossed the room. She lifted her chin and he kissed her the way he had the first time. Slowly, deliberately, on the rooftop of his restaurant on a late Tuesday night with Atlanta spread below them, and her locks smelling like shea butter and warm air. When they pulled apart, her forehead rested against his. Nakyo, he said. Mine? She raised one eyebrow. That specific look. The one that meant she found him entirely too much. Use that sparingly. He almost smiled. I know. But the corner of her mouth curved. I kind of love it. 6 weeks later, at 6:09 a.m. on a Wednesday morning at Northside Hospital, with her sister Danny gripping her left hand and Luo Yang holding her right, their daughter arrived. 6 pounds, 15 ounces. A voice like she was furious at the world for being so bright and loud. She had Tegan's brown skin and Luo Yang's dark, searching eyes. They named her Era. Korean for beautiful. Because she was, and because it was the first word they had both said. Separately, simultaneously, when the nurse placed her in Tegan's arms. Luo Yang held her for the first time and said nothing. He just looked at her. At this small, furious, extraordinary proof of what happened when you chose the right person against every opposition and refused to let go. Tegan watched his face. She reached up and touched his jaw. Gwenchina, she asked. The Korean he'd been teaching her for months, imperfect and deliberate. Are you okay? He looked at her over their daughter's head. Everything he had burned. Everything he had dismantled and rebuilt. Every cost and every choice, visible in that single look. Jung, he said softly. Yes? For the first time in a very long time, it was completely true. Luo Yang burned down everything that threatened his family and built something better from the ashes. What hit you hardest in this story? Drop it in the comments. And if this moved you, like and share it. Someone out there needs to hear this today.